YouTube Aussie, go in the Goat House is back after a big day of the Combine. Combine day 3, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, a record-breaking day. I'm here with my winners and losers like we are for every day of the Combine. Big updated mock draft on Monday, then on to the free agency videos. Almost at 100K. Would appreciate your subscription. Follow us on Twitter, very important. Links pinned in the comments for anything you're looking for. So we're at the running backs. Trey Benson, big winner, because he's actually one of the bigger backs. I was going to say running backs are kind of getting smaller these days, but it feels like every position, a lot more athletes, faster guys. But 216s, was pretty big for the running backs out there. I mean, Audric Estime is known as kind of a powerful back. He's at 221. Not that much of a difference. So for Benson to run a 4.39 at that size and that build, really strong frame, and that's huge. That is massive. And you see that in his game. I was actually a little surprised with the 4.39. So maybe he's getting faster. That's great. But you see a little bit of the balance in his game where, like, 1 second he's a powerful guy, can shed the tackles. One second he's using his athleticism. 1 second he's patient, using his vision. So you see the collection of different things in Benson's game. Heard he tries to model his game after Adrian Peterson. That's tough to do. But the way he moves his body, the way he carries his body, you do see some similarities. Not that he's going to be Adrian Peterson. That's arguably the most freaky running back of all time. But I thought that was pretty cool that you kind of could see that, and he tries to model his game after him. But showing up at a 4.39, absolutely huge. He was starting, going into the process, it was like, all right, is he running back 1 or 2? And then everyone's talking about these other guys, and maybe they're worried Benson's a little too upright, a little too patient, starting to fall a little bit. Does he go round 3? I've seen some people say round 4. Maybe some people were still around the round 2 range, but I would expect him to be, back as one of the top running backs taken. Definitely could be the first one taken. I'd say, Jonathan Brooks, who we didn't get to watch because the injury in November tore his ACL, the Texas running back, his teammates put on a show. He could have been a part of that too. I think he's the best pure runner, but he has that recent injury. So that could put Benson at the top. So he definitely helped himself. Prototypical type, looking and size running back for today's standards, and runs a 4.39. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants that, in their backfield. And we'll see who ends up getting them, but could definitely go in round 2. Another running back, Jaylen Wright, which we had an idea he was going to, tear it up with his athleticism here at the Combine. We saw the home run ability at Tennessee multiple times. We saw it against Georgia. We saw it against, Alabama, just the runaway speed and, the quickness, the athleticism, the explosiveness. But and he looked pretty built. He's already seen the picture at Tennessee. He's pretty built, but he looked even more muscular, so I love to see that. 4.38 40. Had a feeling he would run around there, but he went and did it. But then he also adds the 38 vert and the 11.2 broad jump. Those are crazy explosive numbers. So before he was top 5, there were some people, I would see some random people have him like number 2 running back, and then some people were probably outside of the top 5. So it's kind of like you either had him at 2 or you had him at 7. It was kind of weird. So I think he kind of solidified himself, kind of got himself firmly in that top 5. I'd say top 3. I'm thinking that Brooks, depending on the medicals, Benson and Wright, probably, maybe in that order, maybe not, but probably the first 3 running backs taken, I'd say. Marshon Lloyd probably right behind him, who I've been raving about for some time. So I think Wright kind of solidified himself up there at the top, where there was either people that are extremely high or there's people that are a little low. Maybe those other people kind of caught back up here with Jaylen Wright. A little tough to judge compared. Running backs typically are the easiest to evaluate, but teams weren't, rarely stacking the box against Tennessee. Pretty empty boxes, to be honest. A lot of wide open lanes, and he took advantage of that. So it is going to look a little bit different for Wright in the NFL, but he looks the part, man. He is built like a, today's style, prototypical back, and he has the, better than athleticism to go along with that. So I think teams are really going to like what they're seeing there. And then Isaac Urendo from Louisville, who was actually their second back, but it was like a 1-2 punch. He actually was with Wisconsin, who's kind of known for their running backs, but had to go to Louisville to get more of a shot, and he was pretty damn productive this year. I know he's more of their second. He was a 1-2 punch, but pretty productive. And he weighs he's 6 feet tall, 221, and he's that athletic. I don't think he plays as fast as 4.33. Maybe it's in there, but again, we finally got to see him get more of an opportunity. Looked pretty good. I want to see him get even more of an opportunity. I think he's more than just like your athletic back that you throw in there. Before, not much, chatter about him because, yeah, he was productive for a running back too, and but he was running back too. Didn't really work out at Wisconsin. He's probably going to go in round 7, but I mean, being that size. And, the prototypical size running back, like every down back, and having that athleticism, not just the 40, but across the board, I think he's got some people's attention. So it's a massive one, obviously, for him on the day. And Louisville ran the ball pretty well, so maybe just needs more of a shot, more time to grow here because he's got the size and the athleticism combo. That is for sure. Some receivers, Lad McConkey, one of the better days. I think if you look throughout the whole day, not just the 40, not just this, not just that, everything combined. Maybe you put Lad McConkey at the top in terms of the winner column because I think it's a pretty good size for him, 6 feet tall at 186. That's a good size for today's NFL. And sometimes you watch him, it's like, is he going to measure in under 6 feet? Because he does look a little, not small for today's standards, but not the biggest guy, but 6 feet tall. That's fantastic. And what everyone knows about Lad McConkey. Everybody knows he's good. But what was the best way to summarize what his game is or was? The big time technician. The smart receiver gets the job done consistently. Again, technically sound. Those guys usually they're good. They're not going to be freak athletes or anything like that, but he goes out there and runs a 4.39. I figured he'd be an athlete, but much better than I expected. 4.39, 36-inch vertical, 10.4 broad. I mean, those are freaky numbers for him. So he's, now we're going, okay, he was starting to maybe talk about him going in the first round because he's a good route runner. Again, he's very smart. He knows today's game. He knows how to get separation. He's pretty tough after the catch. So he's a guy all right, it's not really a gamble. Maybe we take him at the end of the first round because we're going to get production. We're going to get a smart receiver that's going to help this football team. And now you throw in that he's an athlete. He's a big-time athlete. And maybe he's becoming more of an athlete. I mean, that's huge. So we did see his name in mocks at the end a little bit. I thought most time we were talking about him in the top 40, top 50. I think he goes in the first round, but maybe a little tougher as we start talking about because he was in the first group of receivers and some guys in the second group. It's tough because those receivers are so good. They're all fighting with each other right now. But I think he'll go at the if he's on the board still with the Chiefs picking at 32, it's a very strong possibility. I look at the Ravens and their pick, which is just a couple picks before the Chiefs, especially with Todd Monken there. I think that's a decent possibility there at Lad McConkey. But it's a big winner. Smoothing the drills, we knew that though. But adding the athleticism on top of what we already knew about him, it's a big winner. It's absolutely huge. And this one's actually tough. Believe it or not, people may go yes, you have to put Adonai Mitchell on here because it's a 6'2", bigger body, jump ball, contested catcher, incredible hands. When the game's on the line, throw it up to 80 Mitchell type guy. And then for him to run a 4.3, one of the fastest guys in the day, I was not expecting that. Not out of the freaky receivers in today's game. I figured he'd be a pretty good athlete for 6'2", but man, was not expecting that. The 39.5-inch vertical is great. We were expecting that one. 11.4 broad. That's probably a little bit better than expected. It's great. But to add that 4.34, for a guy that is 6'2", 205, and the type of player he is, the good player that he is, to run that 4.34, I mean, that is huge. So at the end of the day, he is a winner. But why I say it's maybe tough decision for me putting him on here, I didn't love what he was showing me in the drills. A little tight when getting out of his breaks, when getting around those cones, when break into that out route or the curl route. Did have a drop. He fell down in the gauntlet. McCarthy missed him a couple times. There's some quarterbacks were missing him, so he was getting a little frustrated there. But I thought he could have been better. But in game, him attacking the ball and catching the ball really isn't an issue, so I'm not really worried about that. But I thought he could have had a better day on the field, believe it or not. But at the end of the day, he helped himself. At the end of the day, teams are going to be going, all right, we kind of thought he was borderline first anyways, because he's that guy. He's that dude. When the game's on the line, it's give me the ball, let me go up and take it. I love those types of guys, And he has some moments on tape, too, where he separates and a little bit of wiggle to him, so that's good. But for him to go out and show that he's that athletic on top of it, teams are going, okay, like we're serious here. So he should go in the first round. If the Bucs lose Mike Evans, there's a potential Mike Evans replacement. It's going to be tough to replace Mike Evans because he's that great of a receiver. But Mitchell could be that guy. Could go at the end of the first round as well. But I overall definitely helped himself. I do, again, if the on-field drills went better, like he could have been maybe the winner of the day. Maybe the name of the day also plays at Texas. We'll talk about him soon. Kind of go in order on when they when they worked out. So that was kind of the first group of receivers, and the first group of quarterbacks were in the same group of the first group of receivers. So J.J. McCarthy's a big winner on the day. He doesn't have any of the testing numbers. We had a big blank box there. But he was a winner before even actually stepping on the field and throwing the ball, because it's all we heard. And people forget a big part of the combine is the interviews, and even for the media, like hearing the guys talk, that's pretty big. I mean, for us to judge, but what we hear about the interviews and everything, it sounded like went perfectly. Another big part of it is, we can't really believe everything we hear, but it seems like the general take on him is he is going earlier than everyone thinks. Like and a lot of us thought me because of his upside. He's a winner. He's accurate. He can make some big plays. He can throw on the run. He can escape pressure. He can run if he has to. We were thinking, maybe he does go first round because of the upside. It's a guy that sits, for a year or two. But based on the talk, not only is it like he's going first, and then all of a sudden you hear like he's going top 12, and all of a sudden you're hearing multiple, not just one, but multiple teams think we could have 4 quarterbacks go very, very early. Maybe somebody trades out of a pick like the Cardinals, and McCarthy would be that fourth guy. And that's why I love the draft. There's always surprises, the unexpected. Nobody really can predict it. We can predict players and evaluate players, but so is there a scenario where he's the third quarterback taken? I'm not expecting it, but I cannot sit here and say 0%. I would definitely put it a lot higher than 0%. Not that it's likely. So he's already a winner because of all that. And you hear the kid talk. He's smart. He's got to put it together. He's got it put together, I should say. It sounds like teams like him. And then the throwing portion obviously doesn't run or anything, but the throwing portion, he started a little slow at first. Footwork looked improved. The way the ball was coming out looked great. The release, I should say, quick, snappy. He was overthrowing a little bit, but then as the throws went on, like he was heating up and he was starting to put on a show. Then and the throws became tougher and tougher for him. He was actually missing some of the easier throws, which he was a general at Michigan. Like, make the simple throws, let's go win this game. Run the ball, make the simple throws. So I'm not really worried about that. But the harder the throws got, he was actually getting better. Even some that went incomplete, but some of those corner routes were looking really good towards the end. So he got better and better as time went on, and I think that's kind of going to be sums up J.J. McCarthy. I think he's going to get better and better as time goes on. I still think he has a lot of good football ahead of him. So he's a guy that's rising up for me. It's a guy that just seems like he's going to be rising up for everyone. So before it was like, some people would say early round 2, the teams that need a quarterback round 2, but probably round 1. But I think he's a lock in the top 12. Like if he's sitting there for the Broncos at 12, I think they take him. I think if he's sitting there for the Vikings at 11, I think they take him. So it kind of cancels out the Broncos. But could those teams trade up? The Saints, could they be trying to move up to look for McCarthy? Again, could he go as early as 4 if the Cardinals trade that pick and maybe they just want to take one of those crazy receivers? So overall, like a big winner. Maybe other people won't talk about that because they're focused on the 40s and everything, which that is a huge part of the combine. We're talking about combine, stock. It is a big part, but actually a massive winner in J.J. McCarthy. And then Xavier Worthy, who stole the show, maybe the biggest name now in terms of this year's combine in general, because he broke the 40-yard dash record running 4.21. And when you saw him run that first one, it ended up being 4.25, but you're going, and I knew he was going to be fast. If you know anything about Xavier Worthy, we talked about it in a video before the combine, like he's a track star type guy. We knew he was going to run fast, but watching him run, it was like, whoa. We saw other guys run 4.3s, but it was just different. Like he was you just see him, like, I mean, it kind of gives you goosebumps a little bit, how fast you see that guy moving. It's ridiculous. That 40 is done just like that. And he runs a 4.25, and it's like, whoa. It almost felt faster than that, too. And then he runs that 4.21 and he sees it up on the big screen and he's running still at full speed, celebrating. Everyone's running after him. It was an awesome, awesome moment. He is a little undersized, obviously not with the 5'11", but with the 165. So kind of around that 2.2 Atwell type level. But Worthy was a more consistent, bigger play guy. 2.2 Atwell was a pretty good player though, and he had a pretty good year for the Rams. And speaking of the Rams, Les Snead said actually I think his wife tweeted it that Les said that it was the fastest player he ever scouted in Xavier Worthy. So that means something, obviously. And I go back to his freshman year. He looked like, we were like, whoa, like not just the speed, everything. Like this guy is a future elite, like top tier receiver pick. Like I feel like we should be talking about him based on the freshman year, what we thought he could become. We would be talking about him at the top with, the Malik Neighbors and, those guys. That didn't quite happen. He didn't really put on any more size, and how's he going to handle press? Not the most physical receiver, which is not the end of the world. Did have some drops. Did have some bad drops, especially year 2. I thought he cleaned up a little bit more this year, but I still think his freshman year was his best season. But the talent is in there, and we know the speed's in there. We know the big playability's in there. 4.21, fastest player ever. It's ridiculous. And then 41-inch vertical. The guy gets up. He is a natural, freaky athlete. It's not even natural. Broad 10-11, to add on top of that. I mean, the 10-yard split was great too. There was a point where, maybe he was mocked late round 1, but it really, lately it's been firm round 2. Like probably early round 2, but pretty firm. I don't see how he gets out of the first round. I know there's going to be people that, because the 40, it's a little more than that. He's more of an athlete than just the 40. He's explosive, but you go back and watch tape. He was very good. There wasn't really an issue with production at all. There wasn't, he would never really disappear. There wasn't an issue with his usage or where he was aligned. It was just, got to be a little more physical, got to catch the ball a little bit better. But the talent is in there, and speed is more important. It's more important now more than ever, really. So, out of all 32 teams, or the teams that pick in the first round, and that's not for everybody, but there's going to be teams like, it's a good ball player. We saw the elite potential talent at one point, maybe more than one point, and this speed's going to kill. There's going to be a team that takes him. So he's going to go in round 1. I think the sweet spot, he could go earlier in this, but the Ravens and the Chiefs, I look at those teams that like speed, that know what they're doing. It's kind of the sweet spot of the draft. Need receivers. Maybe you can go a little earlier. Go to the Bills possibly, but it's going to be the top 4 receivers. We know, and I was a little disappointed Worthy didn't run the drills after, but you run a 4.21, you're that explosive. You got our attention. You're a winner. But let's throw Brian before what I'm about to say. Brian Thomas Jr., big winner. It's good to bring him up now because I was kind of going to go over going into Xavier Worthy. And I said it's going to be interesting to see how the receivers come off the board. It's not going to be super, super interesting how the first, it might be where they're going to land, but the first 4, how they're going to come off the board because we know who they are. We know in any order, we know the top 3 is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, in any order. Brian Thomas is going to be the 4th receiver taken, and it might not be long after those top 3. And after that, it's going to be very, 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 very interesting. Xavier Worthy, Lad McConkey in that conversation with some other guys as well. But Brian Thomas Jr. was already kind of that receiver 4, but he locked himself in at that. And I think everybody had him in the first round of mocks, but he was kind of rangy. Like you see a mock of mine, I have him going to the Bears up at 9, but then you see another mock, of somebody and he's down at 24 at the Cowboys. And I can play with, especially this early, I can play with multiple different scenarios, and I could see him down at 24 at the Cowboys before the Combine. But now, so 24 was kind of the latest. Most people had him earlier than that, but that was kind of the latest. Now I think the latest is Saints at 14. Saints looking for our receiver, then they would really like Brian Thomas Jr. But this guy at 6'3", 209, big body guy, fights defensive backs off, the contested catch expert, go up and get it. Make a play downfield, make a play in the end zone. On 14 touchdowns this year. For him to run a 4.33 with the play that he has, the size, the build that he has, insane. 4.33 is absurd. The 10-yard split is absurd at 150. 38.5-inch vertical. Freaky, as expected. Huge. Absolutely huge for Brian Thomas Jr. Kind of locking himself in, solidifying himself towards the top. So those are some massive winners for today. We got a long list of guys I want to talk about still, Marshon Lloyd, I mean, he kind of did what I expected. I've been hyping up Marshon Lloyd. He's kind of been one of my guys for a bit. People, I think, catching on here. Fumbles is the only issue for him. He did have quite a few fumbles. Had a few alone against Utah, if I remember correctly. But in terms of talent, like how gifted of a runner he is, like he's at the top. Like he's at the top with Jonathan Brooks. Explosive, good mixture of physicality, speed, elusiveness, vision, everything. Can catch, can run after the catch as well. Just got to hang out. It's really the only thing hanging out at football, but he showcased that he's an athlete. I thought Devin Leary of Kentucky, formerly NC State, I thought he threw the ball very well. Like, I guess his knock is he's not as flashy as the Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, but I thought he was very consistent, very accurate, the timing, how the ball was coming out. I think DJ was raving about him the whole time. Michael Penix did his job, too. I mean, he needed to, too, because, we're kind of what's fresh in our mind, the national championship game, and then not playing in the Senior Bowl game that comes out here and throws the ball pretty well. And the medicals is a big thing, too. There was no red flags in the medicals, but it's still a negative on his evaluation. The scouting report is that he has some list of injuries, but that's a big reason he's on here, too, is he's past the medicals. And then some receivers, South Carolina receiver Xavier Leggett was a little disappointing at the Senior Bowl after he was getting hyped up after a really good year. And he went out, and he's the thick dude. He's pretty built, almost like a running back. And he went out there and showcased his athleticism, not just like a thick guy. Like he can move, he can jump. So that was great. And Alabama's receiver Jermaine Burton, who I want to, again. No, I've seen Burton. It's hard not to watch. If you watch football, watch Alabama this year. So obviously, I've seen Burton. But after this, I kind of want to watch a little bit more of him. Seems smooth, seems athletic. I was thinking more Bond was their best receiver, which a lot of people do think Burton was their best receiver. I was more of just in terms of an NFL evaluation. I thought Bond was, and obviously he transferred. But Burton's intriguing. I'm going to watch some more. Ricky Pearsall he's been rising before the combine as well. Good Senior Bowl, good career at Florida. But he's been starting to rise up too, talking about him on day 2. And I thought he looked the part out here. Probably goes in round 2. Tez Walker, good at North Carolina. Not the best Senior Bowl. Does have some drops. I was really disappointed with the Senior Bowl. And he went out here and he looked pretty good in terms of the athletic testing and in the drills. Then Roman Wilson, kind of as I expected, but he's a guy that's been climbing as well, being in the 4.3s. Looking smooth in the drills as well. So he's going to continue to climb. He's kind of in the same boat as Pearsall. They've been soaring up the board. Once they were talked about as round 4 guys, and that was before the Senior Bowl, not just before the combine, but now they're kind of making themselves as firm round 2 guys. Could they be sneaky? I could see, Roman Wilson could be sneaky at the end of round 1. Not really counting on it, but Malik Washington, who was extremely productive and had that big playability at Virginia, he needed to have a good combine. We knew he was athletic and he's quick, but he's definitely on the shorter side. So does he have the strides to run a good 40? Is he going to look the part away from that Virginia system? And I thought he did. So I thought he came out and did pretty well. Then Jalen Polk, who kind of one of my guys I've been talking up a lot. Don't forget about him in that Washington group because he got the job done. He went up and took the ball from people. He had great my I thought he found ways to get open, just against zone coverage, which you don't see a whole lot, for college receivers. So I was kind of thinking I don't want to overthink though. Those are great things to have. And really the knock was the speed, and for him to run low 4.5s, that's fantastic for him. That's right around where I thought he'd be, but I thought people were talking he was going to run high 4.5s or even 4.60, but low 4.5s is great for him. That's a ball player right there. It's a ball player. Troy Franklin had a very interesting day because he was very athletic with the 40, but mainly, getting up in the vertical, the broad jump, all those things. Kind of going back to the 40, though, part of the 40, the 10-yard split, he actually had the worst on the day. So that's interesting, but he had a great 40, so it does kind of fit. He's a speedy guy, big playability down the field. He wasn't overly great at all. I didn't love his workout on the field, so it was all right, he's explosive, he's fast, that's great, but then there's the iffy things here. And then other receivers around his range of the draft, Xavier Worthy, maybe Roman Wilson's coming. Lad McConkey's more in that role, in that range. Adon Mitchell, more guys like that. They're kind of going up, and so are they going to pass Franklin? He's almost on the stock downside, but because he's so athletic, so explosive, and he showed that at the combine, it's a big part of the combine, big part of what we do here. Everything on the stock up, stock down, the combine videos are based on the combine, so it's hard to say he had a bad day or anything, and then kind of going to, what stood out and what didn't in the drills and in the 40 and not so much the 10-yard split. Kind of goes back to, like, is he just like a straight line deep ball guy? Like, is he one dimensional? So maybe that's going to have teams worried. So his range was, the Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs, if he was going to go late first. And now the guys like Worthy are in that, and Ladd McConkey. I think Worthy, Ladd McConkey, and Franklin, they're not exactly the same type of receiver, but that's kind of what those teams at the end of the first round are looking for. Like, some of those teams might not be looking for Adon Mitchell. They could be, but so those are the guys there. Did Franklin get passed up by those guys? And then Audric Estime running in the 4.7 140. I was surprised about that. And the tape is he's faster on the tape. That matters more, but that was tough. And he jumped very well. Like, he looked really explosive in those drills, because that's great. But I still think why it's stocked down is because I thought he was in the conversation of, I don't think he would have went first out of the running backs, but I think he was somewhat in that conversation. For me, my top 5 backs going in, and it's still early in the process, but going into the combine where Estime was in there, and then Lloyd, who we talked about, is a big Lloyd fan, Trey Benson, Jonathan Brooks, and then Jaylen Wright. Those are my top 5 running backs, and I think 4 of those guys made themselves the top, like, should be consensus top 4. So I think I was on something there. But Estime kind of, as those guys went up, he dropped back because doesn't have the speed those guys had. But for a big body, physical, like, breaking tackle back that he is, he does accelerate pretty good in game. I mean, we see him hurdle guys, but I don't go. That's kind of the highlight plays for Estime, the hurdles. But I look at what happens after the hurdles. I remember a Central Michigan game where he hurdled, and then all of a sudden he was just like, he's moving, like he's accelerating past everyone. You're not supposed to be able to do that, period. But factor in that he's a big body guy. So, but it didn't really help himself with that 40. And then Keon Coleman, interesting one as well. He jumped 38. That's like freaky. I expected him to be like Keon Coleman, that jump ball guy, like freaky build. I expect him to be like maybe the best vertical. So, but I can't sit here and say 38's bad at all. That's getting high, but I thought he'd be more. And then 40 in the 4.6s. I know he's a big guy, but I feel like he should move faster than that based on his like frame and how he plays. So that hurt a little bit, but he looked pretty good on the drills, especially the gauntlet. He moves faster on the field. It looked a little smooth there, but at the end of the day, why is it stock down? Yeah, all these guys are flying. All these guys around his range of the draft, his question separation, they're all running way, like they're getting faster than we thought. Maybe they're getting faster day by day, week by week, and he's in the 4.6s where you thought he was going to run faster. You thought he was going to jump higher. So even though it looked better in the drills, and he does have faster game speed, it doesn't really help his case. These other guys are kind of passing him up. So somewhat in the same category as Franklin, but Franklin did have some big positives going from the athletic department. So there you have it. That's 3 days of these videos. So check those out. One more day offensive lineman. I know it's not going to be the most exciting day, but there's some good old linemen in the class. We'll have an updated mock draft on Monday. That's going to be huge. Maybe a couple more draft videos. We're also getting in the free agency predictions, rumors, trade stuff, and then free agency grades, rapid fire as free agency starts. And then we have you covered on Twitter as well. Check out our sponsors, GLD Shop, Liquid IV, code GO. Links pinned in the comments for anything you're looking for. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.